I would love to be able to get all the way through epithelial, or through tissue histology today. And that'll put us right on track to talk about the integumentary system in detail next week, even though we'll talk about it in lab. Okay, so connective tissue, dreaded connective tissue. Connective tissues. All right, so some general things. First of all connective tissues are the most diverse types of tissue. And you'd think, why with that much diversity, why would we consider it all connective tissue? What is the common factor that all connective tissues have in common? You know, what connects blood and bone and cartilage in your joints? Why are those tissues related? Why are they all connective tissues? Well, it has to do with where they come from. Okay? And they come from an embryonic. Embryo means baby. Okay, they come from an embryonic tissue known as mesenchyme. And this mesenchyme contains the stem cells. Okay, and then these stem cells differentiate into the specialized cells that make up all the different types of connective tissue. So your blood, your bone, your joint cartilage, your ligaments, okay? All of that connective tissue comes from the stem cells in this mesenchyme. And so that's what unites, that's the one uniting factor that all these different connective tissues have in common. All your connective tissues, okay, and I'll just abbreviate that with CTs, okay, they also have what's known as an extensive extracellular matrix. Okay, they have an extensive extracellular matrix, all right? We have not seen that up to this point, have we? Most of the cells that the tissues that we've looked at this point are fairly packed in, fairly tightly bound. Okay, epithelial tissues, for example, really tightly bound. All right, but connective tissues, the individual cells themselves, are rather spread out. They're really spread out, and they're embedded within this matrix. Okay. And in fact, the cells create this matrix that they're embedded in. Okay, so there's this fairly extensive extracellular matrix. Okay. Lacunae are very common, particularly when we talk about cartilage, which is a type of connective tissue. Okay. And just some basic terminology. Active cells, so cells that produce the extracellular matrix, these are what are known as sites. Okay, we call these, they end, okay, they have the suffix site. Now, when that cell gets surrounded and it's in a lacuna, and it's not producing matrix anymore, and it matures, okay, you know what? I think, let me erase this. I think I messed it up. Sorry about that. Active cells, rather, are called blasts. Sorry about that. Erase. I'm here when you're erasing. Right. So active cells have the suffix blast. When they're producing the matrix, okay, there are many different types, but they all end with blast, and I'll give you some examples here in a minute. Once they get surrounded by the matrix and they're in their lacunae, and they're happy and they're not really doing a whole lot, they are inactive. Okay, this is when they become site, the suffix site. Okay, for example, bone cells. Okay, when we talk about bone cells, okay, you have the osteoblast. So these are cells that are actively producing bone matrix. And then when they don't need to produce anything and they convert to their dormant, their less active form, they are no longer osteoblasts, but they are osteocytes. Now, an osteocyte can be reactivated into an osteoblast if need be. Okay, but that's just a basic point of terminology. Okay, you have fibrocytes and fibroblasts, erythrocytes and erythroblasts, and all the different individual cell types. We'll get there. Okay, you guys good with that? So far, so good? Okay, so let's start general. Let's keep it broad. What are the general types of connective tissue? Let's start general first.
Connective tissue proper.
Connective tissue proper. Okay. That's the first. What's the second?
Fluid connective.
Okay. Fluid. What's a third?
Supporting.
Hmm?
Supporting.
No. It's the most dense.
Calcified. Loose.
It's the most dense. Most dense. It's very hard. It is a very unique extracellular matrix. Contains something known as calcium hydroxyapatite. Starts with a B and sounds kind of like bone. And then the fourth one is cartilage. Cartilage. There you go. Cartilage. All right, so these are the four general types of connective tissue. You guys cool with that? All right, so connective tissue proper. This stuff is widely distributed. It's everywhere in our body. Okay? Wide distribution. All right. The functional cells are what we call the fibroblasts. All right, fibroblasts. Okay. The extracellular matrix with connective tissue proper is filled with fibers. All right. Remember we talked about those fibers? Collagen, reticular, what else? Collagen fibers, reticular fibers, and elastic fibers, okay? Very important part of the extracellular matrix there. And connective tissue proper tends to be highly vascular. All right? This tends to be highly vascular. All right. Our fluid connective tissue, okay, we're talking about blood and lymph. Not really going to talk about lymph in any detail whatsoever, so we're just going to kind of reduce it down to blood for today. And the fluid connective tissue, blood, as you might guess, has a liquid extracellular matrix. It's a liquid, it flows, so it is a fluid, okay? And what is the name of the extracellular matrix when it comes to blood? Plasma. Good. Good. Blood plasma. So we're talking about plasma, we're talking about the fluid, the liquid part of the blood, not the blood cells. The blood cells are suspended within the extracellular matrix. You guys cool with that? So far, so good? All right. Good. So this is the actual type of connective tissue that can transport stuff around very easily. The other types don't really transport stuff, but certainly fluid. Let's talk about bone. Okay. This is also known as osseous tissue. Okay, also known as osseous tissue. Okay, and you have osteocytes and osteoblasts, and of course the osteoblasts are the builders. Okay, and then when the builders become inactive, quote unquote, they become osteocytes. You also have another cell type that breaks bone down, and these are called osteoclasts. So osteoblasts build and osteoclasts break down. Because your bone is very good at responding to stress. Okay? And bone can do what's known as remodeling. Okay? And has anyone here been in the military? You were in the Marines, right? Anyone that? So I guess it's a kind of a bad example, but anyone been involved in a sport, in a very physical sport, like running or something with a lot of impact? So what did you notice when you first started running? If you ran a lot, what may have happened? Yeah, your shins get sore, and you can actually get these little cracks and fractures in your tibia, right? Yeah. And the connective tissue can kind of tear open a little bit, and you get the shin splints and that. But what happens the more you run? Yeah, what happens is, specifically with your bones, the osteoclasts start breaking down areas of the bone that are not under stress all the time, and then they start building up areas of the bone where you're getting that stress, and you have that called remodeling that occurs in response to that impact. Yeah?
So would that be the same like in kickboxing we used to get wooden sticks and like beat our shins to like strengthen them?
Very likely, yes. Very likely, yeah. So yeah, so like when you're repeatedly kicking something and you're hitting that a lot, absolutely you're going to get remodeling of connective tissue. Huh?
Like is that what this is?
Yeah, this is very similar. Yeah, remodeling. And it doesn't necessarily have to be bone. You can have tissues that can adapt. For example, running around barefoot, right? If you run around barefoot long enough, what happens? That you get that real large callus of stratified tissue. So you do have other types of tissues that can kind of do this adaptation as well, but bones are just one example where you can get this is what we call bone remodeling. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And bone, the way that the arrangement is very different. It's kind of concentric and circular. And so you kind of have these concentric circular rings that develop, okay, in the matrix. And then you do have the cells in lacunae, okay, interspaced in there. And these concentric rings are what we call lamellae. Or lamella if we're talking about just one, lamellae. These concentric ring-like structures. It's very characteristic, very easy to identify on a histology slide, for sure. And the extracellular matrix contains, okay, a substance known as calcium ions, hydroxyapatite. All right, this is a strong, relatively dense, tough substance. Okay, you guys okay with that? All right, and then finally we have cartilage. Okay, cartilage tends to be rather flexible, and it resists twisting and compressing forces. So it's flexible, but it's also good at resisting flexing and twisting forces. Okay. You guys good with that? And the cells are chondroblasts and chondrocytes. Okay. So osteoblasts, osteocytes are bone. Chondro is cartilage. Fibro is connective tissue proper. Okay. You guys good with that so far? Does that more or less make sense? Of course we're good? Okay, cool. Cool. All right. So, I think what I'm going to do is we have gone through quite a bit of material today. Rather than just get halfway through all the different subtypes of connective tissues, I think the better thing to do would just be to stop right here and let you guys out. I know you're going to get out a little early, but I don't think I'd be doing you any favors if I just kind of got halfway through all these different types and then we had to pick it up halfway through next week. I don't know what you guys think, but I think it may be better just to stop here. We've looked at the big picture, and then we'll zoom in on we'll talk about all the different types of connective tissue proper, all the different types of cartilage, okay, all the different blood cells and that. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Work out? Okay. So Thursday, be ready for the lab, the integumentary system. If you guys are having trouble with the end of the chapter questions, and I actually wrote some comments to some of you, don't be afraid to look the answers up, first of all. Don't be afraid to pull your phone out, look them up. Most of the answers are actually in the reading for your lab assignment. So read your darn lab before you show up to lab. Right? Read it, do the questions, and if you're having trouble completing the end, the check your knowledge questions, you can do the check your knowledge questions before you show up to lab as well. Okay, if you're having trouble completing that. Now this one should be fairly easy for you guys. This should be like a nice breath of fresh air. Oh, okay, I don't have so many darn things I need to do. So there you go. And if you're just totally stumped, don't leave an answer blank. Okay, don't leave it blank. I want to see how you're thinking. I'm more interested in what's going on, what's rattling around inside of your head, okay? Even if it's not quite on point, try to answer the questions. Don't leave them blank, because you're going to get points. Even if you don't necessarily get right, if you're thinking about it, you're going to get the points, and then I'll write, hey, consider this. But, try to answer them as opposed to leaving them blank, and you'll be fine. Okay? All right, get out of here. Have a great day. Great evening, I guess.